Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Conversation today. We are very happy to have Michele Ellicks back with us. She is the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Registry of Motor Vehicles, and she was here with us once before. And today she's going to be focusing on a very important topic called shifting gears. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Michele, and you can tell more.
Oh, great. Well, thank you, Debbie. And hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And yes, as Debbie mentioned, I'm Michele Ellicks with the registry. And the registry offers a few safe driving programs. And Shifting Gears has been one of our most popular programs because it really talks about how to improve our driving, how to stay safe on the road, as well as I'll give you some driving tips. We can identify, well, you'll be able to identify what the most common crashes are. And I will also talk to you about the importance of staying fit physically and mentally, because that plays a big role in safe driving. So, so the research, let's start by looking at some of the statistics for older drivers. So it's the story is there's good news and then there's bad news, unfortunately. But so the good news is, as a group, older drivers tend to have a low crash rate. And that's really, really good news. And as a group, older drivers have a low crash rate because most of them regulate their driving. And that's an important thing to keep in mind. By regulating our driving, we're putting self-imposed limits on our driving to keep us safe. So some of those self-imposed limits range from not driving at night, because it is really difficult for older adults. It's difficult to see at night for many older adults. That's because as we grow up, we lose light perception. So we need more light to be able to see clearly. So we naturally scale back our nighttime driving, and that's a good thing. Some of us maybe stick to familiar roads. We're not going to drive across country. We're going to stick to our familiar roads and stick to our routine. The other statistics show that older drivers as a group tend not to be distracted by mobile devices while driving. And that's a good thing. So unlike our younger drivers, older drivers tend not to be looking at the cell phone or flipping through music or posting selfies on, Instagram and Facebook or watching TikTok. So that's good news for older adults, because as they're driving, they're not doing that. So that's the good news. The bad news is around the age of 75, starting at around 75, the crash rate tends to increase. And that's just not specific to Massachusetts or New England. That's worldwide, and it's all has to do with how our bodies change as we get older. So what I can do, I'd be happy to show you a couple slides at this time. And these slides will show you exactly what the culprits are when it comes to driving the crash rate up, why, what is happening, and what can we do to prevent the crash rate from increasing. So as I said, there are things in our bodies that change as we grow up. And vision declines, reaction time slows down, reflexes slow down, cognitive ability tends to diminish, and our hearing tends to decline. So those functional impairments are really the main culprits in terms of causing people to then get into collisions. So the good news here, when we look at these functional impairments, there are a lot of things that we can do to stave off the effects of aging. And one of those things is right at the Walpole Council on Aging, and that is exercise classes. Joining the activities that the Walpole COA offers, coming to these webinars and participating in Zoom, and using your technology at home to help you stay connected and to stay cognitively engaged. So again, like I said, vision changes, reaction time slows down, cognitive ability diminishes, and hearing declines. But you can help reverse some of those effects. Okay, so always get your eyes checked on a regular basis, because 95% of the information that a driver collects as they drive comes from vision, from our eyesight. So really, almost all the information you are gathering as you drive is coming from your eyesight. So that tells you how critical good vision is to safe driving. And then once you gather that information, you're scanning the road. That's key to keeping yourself safe. Keep scanning the road for potential hazards. Once you identify those potential hazards, that message gets sent to your brain, and your brain processes the information. Is this a risk? Is this a hazard? Should I slow down? Should I stop? Should I avoid the pothole that's in the road? Can I do that safely? Can I navigate around the the mail truck that's stopped on the side of the road? Do I see emergency vehicles ahead? What does the law say when there's an emergency vehicle stopped on the side of the road? It says move over if you can, one lane if you're on a two-lane road, or slow down. So your brain is processing the information. So that's reaction time and reflexes and cognitive ability. So, and then of course, hearing as well. Have your hearing checked. Now, I want you to pay attention to this little statistic on this screen, and it says drivers make approximately 25 decisions within 1 mile of driving. I was surprised when this information comes from the Occupational Therapy Association, and they really did a big study on older drivers, why they crash, starting around age 75, and what are some of the reasons. And this tells you exactly how many split-second decisions you're making while you're driving. And that's on a quiet street. If you're going through maybe downtown Walpole, you might be making closer to 30 to 35 different decisions. And now, with the weather improving, you're going to be sharing the road with more cyclists, more motorcycle riders, more pedestrians are out there on the roadways. So you're going to be making these rapid fire decisions. So the cognitive ability, the physical ability need to be at their peak. So let's look at one more culprit that drives the crash rate up for older adults, and that is medications. All the research tells us that most people 65 and older are likely to be on at least one form of medication, maybe several medications, and that can impact our driving. So really important for you, if you go to the doctor and the doctor prescribes you a new medication, talk to the doctor about what are the side effects of this medication, and can I continue to drive safely while taking this medication? That is so important. And if your healthcare provider does not have time to talk to you about the side effects of your medication, well, talk to the pharmacist. You have to have that conversation with that pharmacist, because in Massachusetts, the law says that all of the responsibility to ensure that a license holder is safe to drive falls on the license holder, not on the doctor, but on the license holder. And when you renew your driver's license and you fill out the application, we ask you this question: are you taking any medication that might affect your driving? Yes or no? And we also ask you, are you aware of any medical condition? Do you have any medical condition that might affect your driving? Yes or no? So, and we ask you that because we know that the effects of certain medications, the effects of certain medical conditions cause collisions. Okay, so that's why we're here. The registry is here to help you figure that out. The other thing I want to bring your attention to is at the bottom of the screen, OUI. I'm sure you've heard of OUI as one of our laws here in Massachusetts. It stands for Operating Under the Influence. OUI does include prescription meds. It also includes over-the-counter meds. So what that means is that if my doctor prescribes a medication for me and I begin to take it and I begin to feel tired or sleepy, or it affects my vision, or it causes my reflexes to be slower, or maybe it makes me nauseous, or makes me irritated or excited. Those are side effects that can affect my driving and cause a collision. So if I get into a collision and I, God forbid, hurt or kill someone, there will be a crash investigation. And in that crash investigation, I will be asked, what kind of meds am I taking? Do I have any medical conditions? And that's where the liability falls on me, the license holder. So I can't stress that enough, because that is, medications and the functional impairments that I just mentioned in terms of medical conditions really are the reason why the crash rate begins to increase for older adults, especially around the age of 75, and then drastically more so for age 80 and older. Okay. And then the other thing I want you to utilize on our website, we have this great checklist of the warning signs. So, maybe you're here today because maybe you're not worried so much about your driving. Maybe you're worried about a friend's driving or a family member's driving, and you're wondering, oh goodness, are they safe to drive? What should I do? What should I say? What are some of the resources? So the registry has this great resource, a safe driver checklist. So, and these are really some of the red flags that we should be really keeping an eye out. So having difficulty seeing at night, which I talked about already, having difficulty keeping up with the posted speed limit. Sometimes drivers might say, oh, I drive well below the speed limit so I can stay safe. Well, you know what? That's probably not safe in many situations. Really, we need to be maintaining the posted speed limit. The speed limit is set on the road for the amount of speed the road can handle. And in normal conditions, we should be maintaining the posted speed limit, not going well above and not driving well below. How about being intimidated by passing vehicles? If you find you're intimidated while driving, well, that's a warning sign that you need to pay attention to that. And there are things that you can do. And in fact, my own mom, believe it or not, she had to stop driving for just a temporary amount of time. She got sick. She ended up going into rehab. Thank goodness she got better. She got discharged from rehab, and her geriatrician cleared her for driving and said, Marie, you're safe to drive again. But my mom hadn't been driving for about 8 weeks, a good 2 months. She was away from driving. And when she got cleared to drive again, she was a little worried. She was a little nervous. So she called her local driver's ed school and said, would you mind giving me a couple lessons? And they said, sure. Driver's ed is not just for teenagers or younger drivers. Driver's ed is for everybody. So she booked a couple of lessons with the local driver's ed school, and they came to her. They gave her her first hour of her lesson, and the driving instructor after that hour said, Marie, you're doing great. You've got all the skills you need. From what I can see, you're safe to go. You don't even need the second hour. So, and that gave her the confidence, and it was a nice little refresher for her. So, and she continued to drive safely until she finally gave up the keys many, many years later. So anyway, back to the warning signs. Having difficulty seeing a police officer on detail, or having difficulty following detours, getting lost on one's familiar roads, or maybe there have been some near misses. Maybe you see scratches or dents or dings on a car. Maybe you find that you're easily distracted while driving, or maybe your mind is wandering while driving. And as I said, having trouble following detours. So those are just some of the examples of safe driver warning signs. And if you're noticing some of those warning signs, you really need to have a conversation with either your doctor, because it could be related to a medical condition, or like my own mom did, pick up the phone and talk to the driver's ed instructor and tell them, you know what, I'm having trouble backing up into a parking spot. That's a skill. That's a skill that, driving is an extremely complex skill. I want you to remember that. It's an extremely complex skill. It's not easy. And if done correctly, the driver must be completely focused on driving and nothing else. That's the key. Not worrying about the phone, not fiddling with the radio or the heat or the AC or, adjusting the controls in the vehicle. No, when the key is in the ignition and you're driving, all you are focused on is driving and scanning that road. So I want to ask you, can anyone tell me what is the most common collision for an older driver? Any guesses?
Parking lot.
Ooh, in parking lots. That's a good answer. That's a good answer. Yes, many
Not
crashes
bad.
happen in parking lots. But believe it or not, there's one maneuver that's even more common than crashes in parking lots.
I was also going to guess the parking.
Yeah.
Tight squeezes.
Yeah.
Not that I'm guilty.
Trying to pull out of a spot and all the pedestrians not paying attention. Yeah, parking lots have a lot of hazards. But there's one collision, a specific maneuver. Let's say as you come into the Walpole COA parking lot, you're on the main road. And maybe you have to make a turn into the parking lot. I'm not totally familiar with the Walpole setup, COA, but it's actually making a left turn against oncoming traffic. Yep. Makes sense, right? Because, we probably have to do those many times during our driving day. So that is, believe it or not, making a left-hand turn against oncoming traffic without the aid of a traffic light. Okay, so we're making that turn on our own. That is the number one most common collision for older drivers. So what do we do about it? How do we keep ourselves safe? Maybe we have to go left. Well, what do we do? Well, if you can go beyond to where there is a traffic light with a designated left arrow and make that turn reverse direction if it's safe to do so, and then you can continue and make a right. So anytime you can eliminate left turns, you're gonna be much safer. So keep that in mind. Left turns are really difficult and dangerous, and you're at fault. If you get into a collision while making a left-hand turn, the person making the left turn is almost always at fault because you're cutting across a lane of traffic that has the right of way. Okay. So left-hand turns, and as you said, parking lots, you might be this group of crashes is technically termed failing to yield the right of way. So that could be me pulling out from my driveway, pulling onto the main street. I pull out and it's not safe. Somebody hits me. Well, I pulled out when it wasn't safe to do so. That's failing to yield the right of way. So those are the most common collisions. The other thing that I read, and this is another safe driving tip for you to try to use, practice this. It is called a play-by-play. All right, so it's a play-by-play technique, and driver's ed schools teach this technique while you're driving. Identify, as I said, potential hazards, but tell yourself what it is. By us verbalizing what that hazard is, it makes us more mindful of our driving. So if I were to pull out of my driveway, obviously I stop. I look to my left and I tell myself, what do I see? I see a black pickup truck. All right. So I say it out loud, black pickup truck. that makes me actively see and understand and process what I'm seeing. And I look to my right, I see a green car. So then I look left again. I'm still waiting. Black pickup truck's going by, nothing. It's clear. Green car has gone by. I can now make my left turn out of my driveway. So play by play, give it a try. Not only look to see what the hazard is, but verbalize it as well. Okay, so visualizing, another tip for you. Before you drive, visualize the route you're going to travel. So before you put that key in the ignition, take a moment to know the route you're going to drive. Don't just drive on autopilot. I know, like I said, we stick to familiar roads. You've probably driven the same road 1,000 times, right? But it can be different. Every second of every day is different on the roadways, and people are very distracted. So you have to be most attentive. All of us have to be attentive to our driving and not be distracted as well. So those are some tips. Again, most common collisions happen at intersections, left-hand turns, but also, as you said, in parking lots as well. When you park, try to park so that you back into your parking spot. It's tricky to do, but you'll be safer when it's time to leave because you'll have a bigger view to see. You know, trying to back out of a parking spot is really difficult. And we have to have the flexibility, range of motion, to look over our left shoulder and to look over our right shoulder before we back up. Because don't just rely on that rear view camera, the backup camera. That's not giving you the big picture, okay? So take those exercise classes that the COA offers, because this maneuver, turning and looking over one shoulder, turning and looking is critical to keeping you safe on the road. Even if you're approaching an intersection, turn your head, look left, look right, look left again. Again, getting the big picture. You know, that range of motion of the head and neck region, critical to safe driving. So, so we probably have a few minutes to go, right, Debbie? I'm not sure if anyone has questions on the information I covered. And I will recap while you're thinking about any questions or comments. So we looked at how important it is to exercise, maintain your strength and flexibility if you want to continue to drive safely. I talked about different medical conditions that affect a person's driving, changes in vision, changes in cognitive ability, changes in hearing, changes in our reflexes, and that could be caused anything from, you know, arthritis, dementia, Alzheimer's, even, as I said, medications can affect a person's driving as well. Talk to your doctor. If you're experiencing anything that you might think might affect your driving, talk to your doctor. And again, who's liable? The license holder. The license holder. So that's important too. Check our website, which is mass.gov/RMV, and type in the search bar older drivers, and you'll come right to our older driver website, and it's got lots of resources for everybody to use, including that safe driver checklist that I showed you just a glimpse of. And so any questions from anyone? Yeah, sure, Irene.
Handicap card.
Oh,
And
yes, you're interested in getting a disability placard?
no, I already have one, but I don't know if it's 2021 or 2022. Do they automatically renew it?
Oh, that's a great question, Irene. Yes, the Registry of Motor Vehicles, if you hold a permanent placard, which means that placard expires every 5 years. So that's considered to be a permanent placard. So if you hold a permanent placard, we're going to mail you a new one about 3 weeks prior to the expiration date.
Okay.
So just check your mailbox. Make sure that if you have moved over the past year or two, okay, all right, that's good. You haven't, but if anybody has moved, always go onto our website and update your address, because we're going to be mailing you that placard to the address we have on in our system. So,
Okay.
so yeah,
Thank you.
so you're welcome. So keep an eye out about a couple, as I said, a few weeks before the expiration date, you'll get your new placard, and it will be good for another 5 years.
Okay.
And when remember, in terms of safe driving, don't drive while the placard is hanging from your rear view mirror. All right, that's another
don't-
safety.
I
Good.
don't drive at all, but
Oh, good,
it's when my daughter takes me someplace
good, good,
and
good, good.
talking handicapped.
That's perfect. That's perfect, Irene. Yep. So yeah, so you just hang that placard once she parks in the disabled spot, and that's perfect. And then take it down when she's ready to move the car. So
Okay.
great. Any other questions?
What happened?
No, you're good. You're still with us.
I have a question, Michelle, and I think you
Okay.
touched on this a little bit, but if somebody has a concern about a friend or a family member who's driving and not quite sure whether or not the person should be driving, what's the best way to broach that topic with
Uh,
them?
that's a really, really good question as well. There are a number of ways to approach that. The, if you see something, say something. That's the old adage that we all hear in life. If you see something, say something. First of all, you need to have evidence of what it is you're concerned with. So have you seen them pull out into traffic when it wasn't safe to do so? Or maybe you've seen them weaving and maybe not having trouble staying within the marked lane. Maybe you've seen them driving way too fast or way too slowly. So make some notes first of all, and then Debbie, have the conversation in a neutral, non-biased way. Don't just don't have the conversation while they're driving. First of all, that's not the good time to do it. So wait, gather your thoughts, go at it with understanding and respect, and bring these concerns to the driver. Now, if a driver has prepared for driving retirement, that conversation is going to go a little bit easier than if that driver has never thought about giving up the keys and never wants to think about giving up the keys, right? So some people are ready and able to understand that, yeah, I'm going to live longer than I am safe to drive. So I want you all to know that the research shows all of us, will most likely live longer than our safe driving lives by 7 to 10 years. So we're going to be living 7 to 10 years longer than we're safe to operate. So we all should be thinking about not driving now and have that plan. So if my driving becomes an issue, I will be ready to stop driving. But if you're having the conversation and they don't want to hear it, you need to think about either finding somebody else to have that conversation. Maybe it's a friend in their circle of friends. Maybe it's the family financial advisor. That comes in handy. Sometimes the financial advisor will talk to the driver. Maybe they are religious and they go to church or synagogue, or there's a minister or a rabbi, or some sort of religious leader that could talk to that person. I know a situation where it took the retired chief of police in a community to get through to this driver, because she was in advanced stages of Alzheimer's and kept driving. The family said stop. The doctor said stop. She kept driving. So they turned to the friend who was a retired chief of police, and he was the one that got through to her and said, "It is time for you to stop driving." And she finally said, "Okay, I won't drive anymore, but I want to keep my car registered in my name, and I want to see it in my driveway, and I want to be driven around in my car." And the retired chief went back to the family and said, "Okay, this is her wishes." And they were like, "That's it? That's all we never thought to ask her what she needed and what she wanted." And, that's a really important piece of the conversation, to understand what their needs are, make a list of where they need to go, and how they want to get there if they can no longer drive. So there is a great resource, Debbie, called We Need to Talk. And I could send you some copies, but we also have that link run on our website, our older driver website. And it's part of MIT's Age Lab and the Hartford Insurance Company series for older drivers to keep them safe. And We Need to Talk is how to have that conversation about not driving. And for some people, some drivers, they might need to hear that message from a few different people. It might not just be a family member that they'll listen to. They might want to hear it from someone else. But go armed when you have that conversation. Have specific reasons why you're worried and have alternatives to driving. So, do some research ahead of time, do some homework, and have a list of, okay, this is how we can get you around. I could drive you if you want. Or, there might be transportation in Walpole, or there might be ride sharing services, or there might be a volunteer in town. You'll be surprised when you ask, or maybe a friend who is maybe younger and they want to make a little money and they're okay with driving you. I've heard so many good success stories from many, many people. But I would also recommend, I was thinking about this today, start a transportation account. Even just put a couple of dollars away, every week or $5 a month, and earmark that money for your transportation for when you stop driving. You could hire somebody to drive you around. My aunt hired a driver to take her from New Jersey up to Massachusetts for her sister's funeral. She's still driving, but she didn't want to make that long drive. So she hired a driver. And I think that's really such a smart and safe thing to do. So it's food for thought.
That was good advice and a good tool. I'll definitely put the link to that on our e-news.
Great. And I'll send you the link so it's easy for you to find.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if anyone would like a copy of that, just, Debbie has my email address and I'd be happy to even pop a, copy in the mail to you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Michele? Thank you so much, Michele, for joining us again.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Really, thank you to
Great.
folks at the Walpole COA and the video agency, and to all of you for attending. It's great to see you all again, and I wish you all safe travels.
Thanks, Michele. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.